Hey, what's up, guys? J-Wig is here with another review of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. This is, episode 5, Hera's Heroes. And this was a pretty cool episode, I gotta say. I'd say this is our first kind of real, ghost crew encounter with Thrawn, and that is pretty cool. We get our first kind of feeling for who, kind of an idea of kind of Thrawn as a kind of a villain and a character as in himself, and he's just a really kind of menacing person. So, kind of what's going on in this episode is that Cham Syndulla and Numa, yeah, I believe her name is Numa. If I get this wrong, I'm seriously gonna hate myself. But so yeah, they're running from the Empire, and then Hera gets them up, and then they realize that, you know what, they need a little trinket that Hera's mom made, and that is something that is very dear to Hera's heart, and she needs to get it, and it is unfortunately in the governor's palace, which is Cham Syndulla's palace, which is taken over by the Empire. So it is so the Rebels crew has to get into that tower, get into the governor's office, and get the little trinket thingamajigger, and then escape without being caught or killed or anything along those lines. And of course, that does not go along in the Rebels' favor. So yes, so this episode was pretty fun, I gotta say. It wasn't the greatest episode in the world, but it was a lot better than, I'd say, last week's episode. Even though last week's episode wasn't horrible, but it was okay. But so yes, sorry. Definitely, it was cool to see, how Hera and kind of a Hera and Ezra kind of mission. We don't really see those two work together too much as often, so it was really cool to see them two kind of have to work together and do something, have to go out there and get this certain thing for Hera's, that's Hera's mom, that's hers. And it was very cool and very fun to see that. And I also did love the encounter. I think probably the best thing about this episode was the first kind of encounter of Thrawn. And Thrawn was just really a menacing foe. And when you see kind of him, when you hear him talk and you hear him describe all these things about the art and who she is and who Hera is and all this, it's very, very awesome, I'd say. It's very kind of sophisticated. He's just like, you know what, I don't care, he's kind of very serious, and he doesn't really want to, I'd say, kill her. He just wants to kind of learn, and learn from his enemies, and this is like the perfect way to do it, is by learning from art. And this little trinket that is Hera's mother's, that is his perfect way to kind of get a feeling for, kind of, ooh, okay, so this is kind of where she's kind of leaning towards. This is what, this is definitely going to affect her. So, you know what, I'm just going to take this thing. And it was very cool to see, like, oh, shit, he is kind of a jerk. And it's very cool to see that. And he's not just a jerk kind of to Hera. He's also kind of a jerk to the Empire. You see him be mean to this not rebel soldier, but this Imperial soldier. And it's just very kind of just like way kind of interesting. I wonder if that's kind of how it was in the Thrawn trilogy. In the Thrawn trilogy, I don't know, because I never really did read it, but I'm really looking forward to kind of the Thrawn book that's coming out, so it'll be interesting to see where that comes from there. So, but then what, what more is there to his character, and that is really interesting to see. It's really cool to see him come into this and be like, oh, okay, he is going to be this interesting character, interesting villain. The only problem is that they will not, I'm pretty sure they are not going to keep using the character from episode to episode. Like, they'll use him in this episode, and then they'll wait 4 or 5 episodes filler, then they'll bring him in. 4 or 5 episodes filler, then they'll bring him all in. It's something along them lines, and it's just kind of, that's how it's kind of ruined. And I think that's how the Clone Wars did better, is because they didn't have one major villain. And I think that if they would have focused on keeping, Maul as the villain for the first half and Thrawn as the villain for the second half. So that's kind of already checked off my list from what the 7 things to make Star Wars Rebels Season 3 awesome from there. So, but yeah, that's the only problem I say with Star Wars Rebels as a whole, is you don't see the main villain enough. And this has 2 villains. So there's really a lot that they can do with that, but they're not really using. They're using a lot of filler, and that's the problem with kind of this kind of show. And no offense, I love Star Wars Rebels, and I love the way it is, but that's my only gripe with it, is that there is not enough of the villain. And bringing in Thrawn, how much of an impact he is on this franchise, you don't really see much. We haven't really seen much of him so far. We've seen a smidge of him in the first episode, and then that was it. We haven't seen him for 3 episodes. Well, okay, I don't know if we're gonna count that as an ep, but we haven't seen him for about 2 episodes now. And it's just like, what, why not? This is an interesting character. Show him. And I know that, yes, you can't really show it like, yeah, we need to, this character is not easy to portray, because how is he going to fight up against, Kanan or Ezra or anything along those lines? And it won't. And it's this is the reason why Thrawn is an interesting choice for the villain, because he is not somebody who would be, I'd say, physically imposing to these guys, and that's what would make him interesting. I want to, that's something I really want to see from his character, something along them lines. But that's my opinion. But yeah, guys, I think that's about it. Enough of my rambling here. But yeah, if you have not seen the episode, sorry, kind of spoiled some things, but definitely awesome episode. Check it out. Probably gonna give this episode 4 to 5 winks, just because it was awesome to see Thrawn, and that was probably the best part of the episode. But, some things, and it wasn't like a huge, awesome episode like next week's episode is looking out to be. But yeah, so I'm sorry, this is kind of how it's looking right now. But, yeah, guys, that's about it. So I'm Jay Wink, and I'm waking out. I'll see you guys later.